It is time for the PSL rankings going into week 5. This is a huge week in the PSL. But listen, the man in Vegas, I have his notes right here. He is very angry. He is very disappointed in quite a lot of teams that he had faith in. A lot of teams let him down. He's been impressed by some of the lower ranked teams, but some of the teams he really invested in didn't come through this week, and he is not happy. But this is going to be a huge week, one of the biggest week 5s in PSL history. So many games and teams can really change the course of playoffs depending on the results of these games. It's going to be huge, massive week coming up. So going to D tier, we have Detroit. Now I'm going to go on a little rant about Detroit. Maybe not a rant, but what I'm about to say, it's only really going to apply to Detroit, and it's going to be about maybe like 3 or 4 minutes long. I've recorded this video 3 times and the recording's messed up each time, so this one's going to be a little sped up because I've been here for already like 45 minutes. But if you want to skip ahead, 4 or 5 minutes in, what I'm about to say is really only going to apply to Detroit. Now, we never criticize or talk badly about play by coaches, and the only time we ever do is helpfully. Like, we want to give them like constructive criticism. Because to be honest, when a coach makes a very questionable play or bring and it doesn't work, we hype the fuck out of it. Like Thunder Punch Pussy, I say it all the time. Like, fuck yeah, bring the Thunder Punch Pussy. That's awesome. That's the shit we want to see. But I wanna give my guy Hayden some advice because I really want to see him improve and do better. This off season, unfortunately, the season is over. I want you to get on Showdown. Just make a team with fun Pokemon that you want, and just battle over and over and over again. And then during these battles, what I want you to do is really plan ahead. Like, don't just think about the best play right now, which is, you have to do that, but also think about how you win the game, what plays you need to make to win the game, what Pokemon wins the game, and what you need to do to position that Pokemon to win the game. For example, this week in your game, you had the Virizion, the Paradox one, Iron Leaves. You had that in with the energy boost, and you hit the Galarian Articuno with the Leaf Blade. It did over 50%. So if you stay and you do kill this, because you have the +1. Now you swapped out. Probably because you thought it was Scarf. Was that the misplay? Well, it's up to you. You know if it was a misplay or not, because it all depends. If you thought that Iron Leaves was really important and you didn't want to risk it dying to a Choice Scarf because it was vital to your gameplay and you needed to keep this thing alive under all circumstances, then switching out was the right play. But what I think the misplay is what you swapped into. Because you swapped into Gouging Fire, which was the Dragon Dance Pokemon, and looked like on the team to be your win condition. So with the win condition, you really want to keep that thing healthy. You want to keep it safe. You don't ever want to swap into your win condition to take unnecessary damage. You want to get it in for free. Whether that's a Pokemon's died, you can bring it in without taking damage, or you get a U-turn off and you get a free switch in so it doesn't take damage. You just want to keep your win condition healthy, and you want to position it into the right spot, and that's how you're going to win, because you have improved a lot in like general battling, but when it comes to like looking ahead and like positioning your win condition, I think that's the only thing you have to improve, and that's the most important thing for Pokemon. Like, that's how you win games. That's why it's called a win condition. So you made the play to swap out because Virizion was your most important Pokemon, and then you went to Gouging Fire. Now let's say, because I don't really know your plan, but let's say you actually did know what you're doing, and Virizion was your win condition, and that's why you swapped it out. But what you did after Gouging Fire died is you went back into the Virizion, and then that died. So the reason this was like a little bit messy is because once you swap out, you don't have the boost energy boost because it's like a one-time item. So if you're gonna let something die and then go back into Virizion, you might as well just stay in, because you're naturally faster. You have your +1 attack boost from the energy booster, and you probably would have killed the Articuno. But what you could have done if you actually did want to swap and you wanted to kill Articuno with something else, is just maybe go into your Skarmory or whatever, or something, a Pokemon that is not important and that can just die. Because when you have to sack something off, you don't just want to pick a random Pokemon, or you don't just want to pick the Pokemon that is best for the situation right now. You want to pick the one that is best for the future, and you do that by letting the Pokemon die that is least important. For example, Skarmory is low, and it can't really roost up on anything or do anything, or you have a Pokemon that you brought for a specific reason and it's already done its job, then just let that thing die, but do not let your win condition die. So go on Showdown, just play a lot of battles, learn how to position your like Pokemon really well, and you'll start winning games. So C tier. A lot of things here with C tier. Dallas, LA, New England, and Tennessee. I believe they're all in D tier. Last week they've moved up. They've shown like signs of life again, so very good. Big wins for Dallas, huge win for Dallas, huge win for LA, massive win. Tennessee, I don't quite remember what happened. I think they either had like a win or like a competitive like loss. I don't really quite remember. New England, we'll get back to them because I want to talk about them for a second. And then we have at the top of C the Kansas, Denver, and Buffalo. Some of my favorite teams in the PSL. My favorite 4 teams: Kansas, Denver, Buffalo, and Detroit. I love these teams. They're just awesome. Unfortunately, the season hasn't really panned out for these teams, but I really hope they keep their identity going forward, and just improve it, make it better until it's just unstoppable. Because these are just fun teams. These are fun teams, and these are the really teams that are like holding onto their image. Where if they abandon it, they're kind of gonna fall into the mold of all the other teams. But I hope they don't, because these are like the special, unique teams that they're building in a specific way that is just really unique compared to everyone else. So I really hope these teams can figure out how to keep their identity, but go for a big run next season. New England. So New England, very, very impressed with this team, with the coach and how he's played and how he's battled. Probably, if I had to rank coaches, like that, just based off performance this season, he'd probably be in the best in C tier, maybe even B or B minus. But the reason why this team is still in C tier is because there are so many holes in this team that if this team does make playoffs, which it's looking like it might, you start so far on the back foot just based on the matchup, just because of the holes in your team, and the good players are going to be able to exploit these weaknesses like so heavily that it's so difficult to just win a game against one of the best teams, and then to win a championship, it's going to be so difficult. So I've been super impressed by this team. This coach should be very, very happy with this season and how he's performed. Should be very proud, but it's going to be tough. Like the mountain to climb is going to be brutal. So I'm rooting for him. They're the teams that I like. The teams that have drafted Pokemon that they like because fuck it, they just like them and they don't give a shit if there's holes in the team. They're going to use the Pokemon because it's fun to them, and they're going to try and make it work. These are the teams that I love. These are the heart and the soul of this league. So I hope this team does well. B tier. Chicago, Atlanta, Jolteons all moved up. Very, very good wins for like Jolteon, especially. Jolteon's also a gigantic win. But the man in Vegas, he wants to see you put multiple together, string those wins together. Show that you've reclaimed your early seasons form, back in like seasons 2 and 3, where the Jolteons were a dominant force and like a threat to win the title. So let's see that happen. This team can win the division. I think that will last week, and all of a sudden they're second with a win behind, one differential point behind the winner. So the winner can lose, and this team can lose, but as long as they lose by a little, and the current leader loses by a lot, this team can lose and still win the division, which is crazy, considering that will last, I think, last week. Good win by Atlanta, by the new coach. Very, very solid. Just keep it up. Same with Pittsburgh. I kind of skimmed over them. Just keep learning your Pokemon. Figure out what you want to do for the next season. If you want to keep stuff, get rid of stuff, what you want to trade, and yeah, you'll figure it out. And just kind of get a feel for how you want to rebuild your team. Chicago. It was a very important win. This was a team that was kind of up there in the B tier. That was a big win, so hopefully they can reclaim their form. Baltimore's just slowly chipping away and like just doing well. They're having a very solid season, even though they had quite a lot of holes in their roster. Very similar to New England. I just think the holes aren't as bad, so they're a tier above. Seattle and Green Bay have not played. I think Seattle is the coach is at some sort of family reunion, family retreat, some sort of like sex thing. I don't even know. Look, I don't particularly support incest, but if that's what he's into, I know he's taken his team to Mexico to participate in like the drug cartel things. But listen, he's trying a new method to train the team up. I don't particularly support it. This conversation has taken a weird turn, so we're gonna take a short break and I'll be back soon. And we're back. Now, LA Wild Chargers. This team suffered a giant loss to Jolteons. And the Carolina Panchams is another tough loss. It's one of the teams that the man in Vegas is quite mad at. He ranked this team very highly. He went out on a limb to rank this team quite a bit higher than the coach's performance in past seasons because he was very high on this team. Unfortunately, it just hasn't panned out, and this team is currently last in the division. I don't know if they can make playoffs. It's going to be tough. They're going to need a gigantic win. And then the Wild Chargers, they're like such an inconsistent team. They look so good some weeks, and then other weeks it's tough. You just never know when they're going to show up or not. They're almost identical to the B tier team that we're going to just reveal right now in Philadelphia, except Philadelphia, when they do make playoffs, have gone on like gigantic runs. Like, he is quite literally the Joe Flacco of the PSL. Once he might not be the best in regular season, but once he gets into the postseason, Philadelphia, he's dominant. So that's like the two differences between these teams. But they are just, you never know when they're going to win or lose. It's so random, and I can't figure out why. Arizona lost to Slow Kings. This game, I had to decide who did it show that like the Slow Kings were good or that Arizona were bad. I think Slow Kings have been chipping away, doing very well all season long. I think it really showed that it was more impressive by Slow Kings than it was disappointing by Arizona. I think these teams they're really even teams. I think every game between them will be a coin flip. They deserve to be in the same tier. I think they're in B tier. Cleveland. This was another rough week for Cleveland. The team that was ranked very highly in A+ to start the season. They just haven't been able to put wins together against the top teams. And that's what you got to do to make playoffs. And if you can't beat the top teams, but you can beat the lower ranked teams, you're a B tier team. And that's perfect transition into Washington. Another loss that you really needed to win. You really needed to get the win against New Orleans to show that you were a dominant team. This is a coach that came into the season very angry, like very determined to turn the season around, and they did. They started 2-0, but they were against very low-ranked teams, and then their last two losses were against really high-ranked teams. So that just tells me you're a middle-of-the-pack B-tier team, and if you want to move higher, you want to win a championship, you got to beat those teams. You got to put it together. I believe they can. If the coach just continues their like determination and just doesn't lose it, doesn't tilt, this team could be scary for playoffs, but they do have to prove it. We have the new tier, the A- tier. This is where the man in Vegas gets pissed. I'll just read a little bit of what he said here. I powdered my balls and put them on the line for San Francisco and Tampa Bay, putting them in A tier, even though they haven't particularly proved that I took a leap of faith and my balls have been cut off. Now, I don't know the man in Vegas, but that sounds terrible. I couldn't imagine powdering up your balls and putting them on the line for two teams and then just getting them cut off the week after is tough. That's tough. But yeah, this too big, too big, two big losses by these teams. One to Dallas, who was a D tier team, and then one to Chicago, without their head coach. That's little inconsistencies that we can't see from an A plus tier team. Now this A minus tier was just meant for Indianapolis and Houston, but I wasn't really confident putting Tampa Bay and San Francisco in A or B, so I had to put them in A minus with these two teams. But these two teams are in Indianapolis and Houston. They play this week, and the winner is going to essentially tell me who's the better team. The loser's probably going to go down to B. Actually, I think Indianapolis will probably stay at A minus, even if they lose. I've been so impressed by them, and I do think they're a tier above all these other teams. The thing with Indianapolis is if I am correct in my recollection of past seasons, they do tend to drop games against the top teams. And that's where, to win a championship and to be an A tier team, you have to be capable of taking a game from other teams in that tier or higher. So we'll see how that goes. And it's going to be a big test because Houston, this is a must-win game. You're facing Donkey, a top 5 coach maybe, who is in a must-win game for the final game of the season, regular season. He's going to come out with everything. So it's going to be a massive test for Indianapolis, and we'll see if they win. I think it's time that we recognize this coach as maybe one of the top 5 because he has gotten so good lately. Let's reveal the next 2 tiers. So we have A plus and A. Now, let's just talk about the 3 teams in A tier right now. Even these teams as a whole, I think all 5 of these teams, these might be the top 5 coaches in the league. These might be the top 5 coaches in the league. Now, with New Orleans, and what we do on the PSL is that if you are very well known in other draft leagues, we don't really care. We honestly don't give a shit, like at all. We only care about what you do in this league. And I have heard whispers that this coach is very good in other leagues, for the New Orleans, but he has also been probably the best this season, I think, as well. So this is why this team is in A tier. I think this team has proven that they are like legit. They are one of the best teams, and I think these teams are really pushing S tier. I think they are pushing S tier, and I think if they both get a win and finish the season 5-0, I think they're probably going to reach S tier. These 2 teams are scary, and I would love to see, the man in Vegas would love to see a championship matchup between these 2 teams. Then we have the Rose Raiders, New York, and Cincinnati Blitzers in A tier. They're just consistent. The Rose Raiders have really turned their season around. As a rough week 1, I think, but they've really taken control of the division again and shown that the man in Vegas was right not to drop them down from A tier when it looked rough, but they've shown their back. Insane season from Draco Media and Will. These 2 teams were. I thought the man in Vegas thought that the draft wasn't very strong for these teams, but they've proven that it doesn't really matter, and I think they're both undefeated right now. And yeah, the man in Vegas, these notes here, right here, are telling me that these are the top 5 coaches in the league. These are the top 5. So these are the guys to beat. He also has a little side note here that the winner of Indianapolis and Houston could determine the 6th best coach in the league. So there you go. So much riding on this Indianapolis-Houston game. The division title, and who is the 6th best coach and arguably could be put into the top 5. So the Man in Vegas is putting a lot of stakes on the line for this Indianapolis-Houston game. But these are the rankings going into week 5. Very excited to see how it all turns out. Let's have a quick look at the playoff race. Hopefully you can all see this. You can't. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, so we have New Orleans and Cincinnati winning their conference. Cincinnati winning it by 1 differential point. Miami's right there. And then we have New Orleans, who have quite a big lead for differential. I think a win pretty much secures them the conference title. It's pretty cool to see Seattle up there in 4th. In the 4th seeds, they have still a game to play. If New Orleans lose, though, if they lose, New York, Minnesota, and potentially Seattle can come up and take the 1st seed. So a lot of pressure on New Orleans to finish the season strong, especially because they're fighting for an S tier spot. If we go down the tier list a little bit, we have Rose Raiders taking the lead in their division again. That seems to be locked up for them after the big loss by Wild Chargers. I don't see them losing. And then the 3rd seed with Indianapolis, that's open to anyone, really. I think Tennessee, Jacksonville, Houston. I don't know if Houston can win the division title. I think their differential might be too rough, especially because Tennessee and Deltions play each other, and they're both ahead of them. It's going to be tough, but we'll see what happens. There might be a very, very, very specific scenario where he can still win the division title, though. But looking outside, we have New England. They're just 1 win away. They need to win this game, and I think they play, if I remember who's in their division, they're in my division. But I don't play them. I play New York, so they play Buffalo. They will play Buffalo. The Buffalo's in the 16th seed right now, so that is the best possible matchup that they could possibly want based off standing wise in this conference. So hopefully they can put a win together. And but at the same time, I really hope Buffalo win, because I don't want this team. I don't want to see this team go 0-5. I don't know who I'm rooting for this game, but we'll just see what happens. Kansas City's still on a spot to probably sneak in. Tennessee, kind of cool to see them at the 7th seed. I didn't really see that coming, but that's really cool. Looking at the Violet side, so Green Bay still have a game to play against Seattle, so that could push them back up in there. Arizona, Washington, and Chicago is they're just clinging on. But LA, after that big win, imagine if LA, after being 0-3, gets 2 big wins to finish the season, sneak into the playing game. That would be kind of sick. But I think it's going to require some things to go their way. Like Green Bay probably has to lose to Seattle in their week 4 game when Polly gets back from his activities. Chicago, Washington, Arizona all probably going to have to lose the ball, or at least 1 or 2 of them. So it's going to be difficult. But it'll be really cool to see LA make the playoffs, because this is a team that has not really made playoffs before. I think they might have made it once. But I think when they made it, it was kind of like gifted to them, because I think officially they didn't make it. It was kind of a mix-up in differential, and after the schedule was made, it was found, and the person who actually missed the playoffs said, just don't worry about it. Let's let Lon Lon and the Rampardos have a shot at playoffs. So I think he did officially sneak into playoffs once to get absolutely railed first round. So it'll be cool to see Rampardos honestly make the playoffs. So we'll have to get into the playing game, win the playing game. We'll see what happens, but that would be cool. So that's the video. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all soon.